All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin tonight, I'm going to ask Sue to do roll call, and then I'll have some comments.
Jack Sayer.
Here.
Jessica Lenave. Present. Carrie Germain.
Present.
Chuck Melkey.
Present.
Andrea Fick. Present. Kim Winter.
Present.
Holly Jarvis. Present.
All right, everybody's accounted for. Thanks, everyone. Before we start tonight with our agenda, I'd like to invite everyone here and at home watching to join us as we offer our condolences and support for the Michigan State students, the staff and families that were experienced and affected by the unthinkable and tragic events of Monday evening. It's hard. We have Swartz Creek staff who attended Michigan State. We have students who aspire to attend Michigan State, and family members who have family, friends, or may have been connected to the university. And so I'd just like to ask everybody to please join me in a moment of silence as we remember those who were lost and to give support for the healing for everyone that was involved. Thank you. As I was telling Rod before, when we received word on Monday night, my husband and I are very closely connected to the Michigan State Marching Band, and we are very connected to the students in the alto sax section. And there's 37 of those students at any given time, plus there are graduate students and PhD students on campus that we've known over the years. So it was we immediately wanted to know where they were and if they were okay. And there were some close calls. And so please keep people in your thoughts. And I pray for change. Something has to change. And I'm thinking you'll probably talk a little bit about safety in your comments, Rod. All right, with that, would you please join me in a pledge to the flag? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, everybody. All right, now is our time or opportunity for public comment that's related to agenda-specific items. If anybody would like to step forward and address the board, please come to the podium, state your name, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. No? All right. Before us, we have a consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Jack?
Support.
And Jessica? Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Sue, would you please do roll call?
Chuck Melkey.
Yes.
Holly Jarvis.
Yes.
Carrie Germain.
Yes.
Jack Sayer.
Yes.
Jessica Lenave.
Yes.
Kim Winter.
Yes.
Andrea Fick.
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Heatherton for the superintendent report.
Thank you very much, and good evening. As Carrie said, we have a lot of increased security updates after the tragedy last year in Oxford. Redid all of our threat assessment procedures and protocols. One of the first things that I did after Monday was talk to the principals about all of those protocols and just some reminders about how we engage in our shell of our buildings. We all have now, thanks to the bonds, secure vestibules with 3 locked doors before someone can get into the building. And most recently, we have increased our SROs, our resource officers, from 1.5 to 2.0. And we have a posting with Metro Police for a 3rd. It has not been filled yet. We expect to fill it as soon as there are people available who want to take on that position, but we're looking to go from 1.5 to 3, and we're already at 2. So we are doing our due diligence as always. And just a reminder that at any point, when anyone, staff, students, or family, comes across something that is unusual or uncomfortable, to talk to a building administrator. They are trained in the protocols to assess what is a threat and what is not a threat. So the best thing that you can do is report anything that you find unusual, and they will enact the protocols to assess it. A couple of other items we have going on, busy as always. Our annual reports have been done recently. Thank you to the building principals and Mr. Claren. They are up on the website, and you can check those out. The annual reports have all the annual data, including our state test scores, attendance, etc. Valentine's Day was yesterday, and we had all sorts of fun activities across the district. And so hopefully not too many kids got too sugared up. My littlest one came home and said, you know, half these Valentines don't have any candy or chocolate, and he was very disappointed, decided he didn't like that holiday too much. So hopefully everyone had a good time at their parties. We have a 4-day weekend coming up. This is President's Weekend. There is no school on Friday. There is no school on Monday. So a 4-day weekend. We also have elementary conferences this week. So tonight and this afternoon from 1 to 3:30, and then tonight from 5 to 7, the elementary schools are hosting parent-teacher conferences, which created a half a day for the elementary students today and tomorrow. I updated my flow chart, and I have it somewhere. I will email it to you guys. Just updates the student count at each building. It updates the certified staff at each building. It updates the non-certified staff. And we usually have Mr. Claren update that once or twice a year. So because we just finished with count, we did have him update that. Count is not certified, but we are looking like we may be up 10, 15, 20 if we're really hopeful. Travis shaking his head no. We're hoping to be up some amount of students. And I will get that flow chart out to you. Just a reminder, February 27th, we have the MASB workshop right here in this room for the board. We're going to do dinner at 5:30. Please see Sue. She's taking orders on that. We'll start sharply at 6. Like I said, if you have any questions, see Sue. She's been great at organizing everything. I did get a chance to talk to our representative from MASB today about the session and roles and responsibilities, norms and teamwork. So she's pretty excited to come out and spend the evening with us. And lastly, the students are having a green and white day tomorrow, and they would encourage everyone to wear green and white in support of our friends and family members, colleagues, and students who attend MSU and are dealing with the tragedy that happened this week. So green and white day tomorrow. That is it, Madam President.
Thank you, Rod. Any questions for Rod? All right. Moving on, let's go to Mr. Tanner Wykes, our board representative report.
All right, so starting off at our high school level, the high school is going to be hosting the boys basketball district tournament this March. The high school is, especially with the events of MSU earlier in this week, the high school is currently developing an in-depth security plan to ensure that we have a positive experience for all, make sure we have, a nice, safe environment for all of our students and people who are going to come watch this tournament. This year's first high school roundtable meeting is officially scheduled for Tuesday, February 28th during the advisory period and part of third hour. This should work out to have a start time of about 9:20, 9:25, and depending on how long it's going to take with the groups and the way the numbers are going to work out, it should end anywhere between the end of advisory, which is 10:10, and the most I want to push it is halfway through third hour, which would be 10:40. This is an event that allows the student body to talk in small groups with school board members and administrators to help better the environment of our high school. And students will also be should also be on the lookout next week for an email inviting them to attend. Our performing arts programs have officially entered concert season for the year. Members of the band who chose to participate in this year's solo ensemble traveled to Imlay City last Saturday to compete, and next Saturday, our Swartz Creek Madrigals will be traveling to Mount Morris for district solo ensemble, and following will be Choir Fest in Flushing. At the middle school level, to start off for our middle school kiddos who are going to be on the Washington, D.C. trip, that's going to be taking off tomorrow, so best of luck and best travel wishes to them. The new Target ticket store that I've mentioned that was in the progress of being implemented over at the middle school is officially open, and so far it's been a major success. The middle school kids have been very ecstatic about that, and it's received nothing but positive rave reviews. And the middle school's third annual STEAM Night and grand opening of the new STEAM Wing is coming up on February 22nd from 6 to 7. Down at our elementary level, on Friday, February 10th, the Gaines PTO held their second successful student lock-in, and the school is gearing up for the annual March's Reading Month event. Plans are also well underway for the Gaines Family Fun Night, which is going to take place at the end of this year on May 19th. To update on the Blueberry program, which I've talked about on here before. The Blueberry Ambassadors are busy with their community services acts, and they are doing right now a peanut butter drive to benefit Genesee County Animal Control. Donations will be accepted to the office at Elms and Morris till the end of February. At Cyrene, Maverick, the therapy dog, came and visited with students on Monday afternoon, and Valentine's parties were held on Tuesday afternoon in classrooms, as well as a candygram sale where students were able to purchase candygrams for friends, staff, and family members. Students were also parents were also able to purchase them for their kids, and parent-teacher conferences are Wednesday afternoon and evening, which is tonight. Pajama Day is Thursday, which is celebrating the day before the midwinter break. And finally, at the Virtual Learning Center, student numbers are coming into the building each day are continuing to increase, which is awesome to see. The VLC is also preparing to relaunch the backpack food program in the district. This program will allow Virtual Learning Center students to have a chance to engage in the community in the acts of community service as they help pack food for the food allocations once they are delivered, and the first food delivery date is scheduled for February 22nd. So that program should be well underway pretty quick here within the next few weeks. And that's all I've got for this report.
Thank you, Tanner. Any questions for Tanner? I just want to compliment you and your fellow students on the play last weekend. My husband and I had time to go, and it was very enjoyable. My husband
thank
couldn't
you so
stop
much.
talking about it, how talented all of you were, and what a great production it was. So thank you. You did an amazing job.
Thank you so much. It was such a fun show to put on.
It was great.
We had a blast with it. It was awesome.
All right.
Carrie?
Yes.
How many, and this is more to Rod, how many therapy dogs do we have total? I know we had one on full-time, and do we have any additional?
I think we're up to 3.
Is that true,
June
Tanner?
concurs 3 therapy dogs. We have one at the high school, one at the middle school, and one at Elms.
Good. And is the one at Elms, is that a floater for the elementaries, or does it stay at Elms all the time? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I didn't know.
I can definitely get you a for sure answer.
Okay.
But I know that the dog visits Elms. I'm not sure if it's there every day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. All right, thanks again, Tanner. All right, moving on, we do have a resignation that was in your board packet for an educational aide, Rainey Marr, and also the resignation of Christina Gray. We will miss her very much, our business assistant superintendent, and we hope to be able to find a replacement that's as talented as Chris. So share the news that we are looking for someone. I see that's still out there. Moving on, we do have our board subcommittee reports, starting with academic achievement. I was the lone board member at that meeting, and was joined by Rod, Jim, Kevin, Sean Kovac, and Amy Jackson. Jim did a fine job doing the winter data walk, and I know he's going to do a presentation this evening, so I won't spend a lot of time, but he presented the benchmark reporting information for reading and math from the beginning of the year to the middle of this year, and there was notable improvements in the category of all students, and then there's subcategorized, so if you have an opportunity to look at that information, I would encourage you to do so. We did see some reading improvement and some improvement in math for the all students category. And Jim also talked about the level growth for star reading from fall to winter, and compared the students that were not in the targeted tutoring program and those that were. And it's impressive. I know it was a small group of students, 200 or so, but if that continues or we're able to fund that going forward, it looks like the impact of that was a positive one. And then finally, Jim shared with us the implementation of the wellness surveys that we've brought to this board, and they've shared in the committee several times. And this looks very promising. They've done a cohort of high school students, and it takes just a couple minutes for them to respond. It also results in a green, yellow, red indicator, indicating where that student is in their responses. The students will receive the same questions each time, and there's 4 different choices they can make to respond to the questions. So this is a really great addition to our ability to identify opportunities to give some additional support to students, identify concerns about maybe their behavioral or mental health or well-being. And there's also a component that would alert staff and administrators if there was a student that indicates to all of the questions, everything is red. So that was very encouraging. So that's an overview of that, and I won't steal any of other Jim's thunder. It was a great meeting, lots of questions that they answered for me, and so thanks, Jim, and great work. Moving on, I'm going to go to Jack, and Jack, there was no report. We did not have a policy meeting this month. And Jessica and Chuck, who wants to go first?
Let me go first.
You can go first.
Yeah, okay. All right, the building operations and site meeting started at 2:03 PM on February 6, 2023 at the admin building. Present was myself, trustee Jessica, former trustee Brian Sapanic was in the public, Jim Kitchen, Rod Heathington, trustee Andrea Fick, and Chris Gray. The first thing that came up, of course, was Mary Crapo updates. There was a $13,800 change order because they had to leave the basement west wall intact. They're going to have to saw cut it 4 feet below level to keep everything stable there. They're going to be adding gravel and some more P-rock and sand there. And RC looked at it and said it was all being done right, and it's done to specs. So that's the only overcost we've had on that project. There's also drawings that have been performed, some preliminary drawings for people and trustees to look at the end of the meeting or currently. The bus inspections are being done on February 7th by personnel from the Michigan State Police. And the board next month should be presented with a full report as to readiness and potential violations of all of our district buses. Bus sales, 2 buses were sold at auction for $7,500 and $7,750, and they were more than what we expected. The swimming pool at the middle school, Maureen is retiring from the district. I don't know when her effective date is, Rod. She already retired? And currently, they're going to transfer that to a maintenance tech person, and they will be taking over the day-to-day operations of that pool. That person is currently and should have completed their training, and they'll be responsible for it. I don't know if there was going to be some janitors involved in that or not, Rod. Could you refresh my memory?
No, it's going to be shared between the multiple maintenance techs.
Okay, good. 6 of them total, right? Deke parking lot. Lisa was currently working and sending new plans to Wade Trim to rebid the parking lot and should be ready for March's meeting. There's a change on that. That came up at the bond steering committee today. So I think we're going to be putting that project on hold because there's some issues with some of our vendors, and we're having some issues with the work being readily available and some problems we've had in the past. And Jessica may go on to that more in the bond committee meeting, if she would like. All high school scoreboards, the scoreboards from the high school were taken in the middle school, and they've been installed by the district maintenance crew, and they're working fine, and I guess everybody at the middle school is happy about that. Fire safety inspections, national time, the company will do a complete inspection of all fire equipment in the district, including but not limited to fire extinguishers, smoke and fire alarms, sprinkler systems. Unknown if they're doing the AEDs and the hoses. I did not ask that question, and I don't know if that was brought up at the meeting or not. Do you recall, Jessica or Andrea? Nobody recall that?
As I recall, as the two companies were split, one of the companies was doing the AEDs.
Okay, so they'll be all covered, and that eliminates some work off of RC, so he can do more administration, because he was doing part of that job in the past. Public comment, former trustee Brian was here, as I said, Sapanic. He talked about some available properties. We discussed this before he left here at the board on some properties for sale. At this point, we're just kind of putting it on hold, although we'll keep our eyes open in case it could benefit the district and the price is right. These properties are adjacent to other school property we could use for athletics. Committee comment, more discussion on Mary Crapel and the property available in the area. And as I said, we have plans for that. And then we had a bond report today that overlapped into some building and site committee meetings. Most of us had to do with Deke Elementary and the 400 wing for the athletic department. And we adjourned the meeting at 2:36 p.m. And the next meeting, I don't recall the date, but it's be the first weekend of next month. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.
Jessica?
Yeah. March 13th.
March 13th is our meetings.
Okay, thank you. Better turn that on. The Finance Committee meeting met on Monday, February 6th. In attendance was myself, Chuck Melkey, Andrea Fick, Rod Heatherton, Chris Gray, and Jim Kitchen. It began at 2:37 and ended at 3:49 p.m. The cash and investment summary is as of January 31st. The general fund is at $5,879,012.70. The sinking fund is $1,568,882.87. Food service is $691,509.36. Student activity fund is $304,560.13. Debt service is $2,458,333.40. That bond capital project is at $4,459,247.89, leaving our total cash and investments at $15,361,546.35. The check register review was unable to happen as we met so early in the month it was not ready. Our next agenda item was the budget revision presentation that Chris Gray gave, and that was discussed. And we had we did have committee comments, and that we thanked Chris for her dedication and years of service to the school district and with that committee. The meeting adjourned at 3:49 p.m. I would like to move that you accept my report as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you.
All right. Any comments or questions? All right. Sue, could you do roll call, please?
Andrea Fick,
Yes.
Kim Winter,
Yes.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey,
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Holly Jarvis,
Yes.
Jessica Lene.
Yes.
7 yes.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jessica. All right. Any other groups I missed? I don't think so. Board discussion items. We have the Swartz Creek 2022-23 budget amendment presentation. Rod?
Thank you. I would also like to congratulate Chris on her new job close to home in the nice district of South Lyon, and she'll be with us for a couple more days. She could not be here tonight. She has a family opportunity to attend. So I'll go over the high-level view. Travis will flip slides up top, and you have a paper copy in case some of those digits are too small for you to read. I'll give the 30,000-foot view, and then if Jessica, Chuck, or Andrea remember any details from the meeting, you can jump in. So on the first slide is just a revised general budget, and you can see that with revenues and expenses redone, we're looking at about a 52,000 surplus by the end of the year, which would put our end fund balance at $7,700,000, or approximately 16.2%. On the next slide is just the resolution that we will be adopting on the revised budget in board action items tonight. And it shows that same fund balance at the bottom and some of the other state and local funding. The next slide is the revision summary. And so generally speaking, Chris likes to talk about the differences between the original budget in the blue, the 22-23 budget revisions, and what that ends up with. And so she has made it very clear to me that you have to take the revenue differences and deal with revenues, and then you take the expenditure differences and deal with the expenditures, and then you combine that to give you a total difference. So when you're looking at the revenue differences, you can see that our state revenue was up, some down on federal revenue, but the overall subtotal was positive $301,000 as we moved from the original budget in the fall, or actually at the end of June last year, to our current revisions. And then as you go down to expenditures, you can see a variety of items changing each way. I think some of the basic instruction changes, we have had multitudes of long-term subs, which has resulted in a savings in teacher expenditures. And then you can see there have been some expenses like operations and maintenance was $250,000 more. Community service, $146,000. Support services have been up. And then that rounded out to an additional $262,000 in expenditures. And then you get a difference of about $39,000 there. On the next page, you can see local revenue changes, state revenue changes, federal revenue changes to get that grand total of the $301,000 that we saw on the first page. Property taxes down, but you can see that we had a big athletic gate. Football, we had multiple packed home games this year. So I don't know if you had a chance to attend any of those, but the brand new parking lot couldn't even hold. I don't think one game was able to be fully parked in here, and they were out around the new curve still parking at the middle school and around town. So we had a big difference on the gate for obviously compared to other athletic gates. We did have some MIPSers retirement and UAAL offset payments. Generally, Chris has to kind of do an estimate on what the offset is and what the retirement pass-through is. She said that wasn't as necessary this year, hence a surplus of $380,000. And other state grants, we have the 97 grant, which is safety. We have then some subsections of 97C and D, which is mapping of the buildings and doing an inventory of our outer shells of our buildings. 31A, which is at risk, was increased this year. So between some of the new subsections and some of the increases in the longstanding sections like 31A, we are up 900,000. 31AA was another new subsection, and that's healthcare, health and wellness, mental health, nursing, social work. Federal changes, obviously ESSER 2 went away, so that's almost $800,000 that doesn't exist there anymore. IDA was down, just some small numbers there on other federal funding, and also some small numbers on the GISD assistant grants. So that in total gives you that 301,000 increase in the revised revenue. This is a pie chart of the revenue. Just gives you a little look at where our money comes in from. So 74% of our money is coming in from the state, and that's in the per pupil allowance and other grants. Local from our local taxes, federal being the federal grants, and other is 1% or less. And then the expenditures. And so if you look at the percent changes on the far right and the amount of the changes on the second to the last column there, you can see some of the changes in expenditures. Capital outlay, for example, that 668 was one of the air handling units that we did through ESSER. Retirement, you can see 540,000 again we saved there. Purchase services went up, contracted services went up. Our sub rates and our subs have been much higher this year, and that hits some of your purchase or contracted services. And the top is just life, health, and dental, for a total of $262,000 in increased expenditure. And then you have expenditure by object code in another pie graph. Salaries, 44%, and benefits. They always will tell you at the state that salaries and benefits, well, they used to say below 80, and now they say almost 90. You can see that that's at 76, but remember, we have a lot of people who are on contracted or purchase services. So those services, if you add those up, you're getting way closer to that 90%. So almost 90% of our expenditures are on people. And then you can see supplies at 5%, capital outlay at 2%, and other at 3%. And this is by function code. So you can see that over half of our budget is spent on instruction, and then you got multiple types of support. You got pupil support, general support, operations in at 8%, transportation at 4%, central services at 6%, athletics at 2%, and then we have community services at 1% and other payments at 3%. So we were down a little bit in student count. You can see that our blended from the fall and the spring and the year prior accounts for our total per pupil amount. So fall's 90% and the spring is 10%. Our membership was 3,467. We were thinking that we were going to come in at 3,500, so we're roughly 30 students shy of what we thought we were going to get. And we have projected a little bit more than that. We thought we might get a 10 or 20 increase. However, that was offset because for the second year in a row, we got $450 per student. So when you increase the amount per student, that accommodated for the student loss and was still a positive sign for us. And the last state revenue conference is actually saying we might have a third year in a row of increases. The data is looking very good, that the economy, as far as the school aid fund goes, is going to be very healthy, and we are predicting a third year of per pupil funding increase. And then that just kind of shows you the fund equity trend. As you can see, there's a big dip in the middle there. I think after 2008 is when everything started to crash with the Great Recession there, and then we slowly but surely were able to continue to build it back up. And you can see it rise all the way up to the current year with the estimated percentage at 16.2% of our total budget. We do also have to adopt the food services budget. And so you can see the revenue and expenses, and that we actually spent more and we took a loss. We've been trying to take a loss for a very long time because we continue to get letters from the government that we are not spending enough money out of our food services. It is federal funds allocated, and we are supposed to spend all of those federal funds. So we have finally been able to time the right school year to get some equipment into the cafeterias, spend a little of that down. We still, after spending $460,000, have $375,000 left in food services, which is about a 15.3% fund balance there. And again, there will be a resolution there that adopts our budget for food services, and that will be in our action items. High overview. If you have any questions for me or the three board members that were there for the detailed depth, we can take those.
I have a question. I was at the meeting, but I have a question, which, looking at the math, do we sell other school vehicles before the two we just sold?
Have we, I don't know if we have recently, we have sold trucks in the
We
past.
sold 2 maintenance trucks last year.
Last year.
Well, this says 17,000, but the two buses we just sold would have been like 15,000 something. Is it the same, are we talking the same things? This 17,000, is it the two buses?
The buses were, what,
Buses come out to 15,000.
15,000, so we must have sold.
15,250, I think.
So we sold something else. So we
Yes.
still have that extra 15,000 coming in somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, that's my question.
I think that came out of last year's fiscal budget, the trucks and the plows. I don't know why that shows that way, Andrea, but I don't know. Chris isn't here to answer that, but.
That's okay, but it's
Yeah.
not the buses, is what
No,
I'm
no.
saying.
No,
So
no, we
still gotta
have
credit
exact
the
amount on the buses, right.
Perfect.
My only concern is, my board members, Madam President, do you mind? I'm sorry. Is that all the federally funded positions that we have, that have been paid federally funded, someday somebody's gonna say, they're gonna turn the spigot off, and we're gonna have to make a decision on how many of those positions we're gonna keep or not, because that'll come out of our general budget. And that will not make us quite as healthy as what we are. But that's something for further discussion down the road. But at finance, I always worry about things because they're like, oh, you can add this position, you can add that position. And a lot of it's federally funded or partially funded from them. And we just have to be careful as a board that these positions, if we get real dependent on them, what's going to happen if they cut the funding and then, there's no other way to fund them but from a general budget fund.
Yeah, and we have tried,
And Rod's been good about it, and Ben before him was good about it. They've always been conscientious about it. But I just want some of the new board members to know that hey, we got to worry about this at finance every month. Thank you.
That's a great point, Chuck. So if you're new and you haven't been able to take a look at the multiple funding streams, we've had a lot of federal funds with ESSER this year, and we've tried, and I don't know if Jim's going to mention some of the money that we've allocated just for student support, but The one-time federal money, we try very hard to put into items and purchases because that disappears. So as you see, ESSER 1, we had it, it disappeared, yet then we had ESSER 2, and you can see how that came off the budget this year. We have till the end of September to complete ESSER 3. And we had over $300,000 to $400,000 in libraries. I think we said $1.2 million in a blown-up 3-year summer school program, and in the tutoring was another $300,000 to $400,000. And we also had some one-time payments for just holding on to people. So we've tried our best with those ones that disappear to be one-time costs. Those are the ones that are yearly are usually your at-risk money. So in the state at-risk, it's called 31A, and in the federal at-risk, you have Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. Title I is support services, so that's very similar to the 31A, and Title II is a lot of professional development and training. And those are specifically allocated for things like intervention. So when you see that we added the instructional coaches, for example, those came out of an allocated resource for that very purpose. The state's been trying, and I've personally been trying to increase our social work, our coaches, and those things that help. And those monies are allocated for that kind of support, and they cannot be used against a general education teacher. It actually saved us money because in subbing out those 2 classrooms, we cut our costs almost in half, and then the two people who took the instructional coach went against the federal grant. But Chuck's right, if federal or state grants change, you would then have to allocate where those people belong within the budget.
And you guys have done a great job of it. You and Chris have done a great job, and Jim, so, but I know we want to keep our kids staffed up well, but I just worry in the future what's going to happen if we depend on federal money all the time. But you guys are doing a great job on the way you're spending it and allocating it and shifting it.
Thanks, Chuck. And I think it's worth reinforcing that this board had a lot of input on what we chose to fund from those federal funds, and being very careful and very cautious that we didn't have positions or anything that we had to pay for each year that, to Chuck's point, we would have to make hard decisions in the future. And I can say that I know, and you know this very well, so do you, Jim, that other districts didn't necessarily give it that level of thought, and in a couple of years, they're going to be back to the drawing board. So I applaud all of you for giving us those suggestions, and they were very thoughtful, and it was, those are the hard things that we do as a board, but there was a lot of thought that went into that, so. Any other questions for Rod? This is something that we will be taking as an action item in a little bit. Okay. All right, moving on. We do have the winter data walk, Mr. Kitchen. I'm excited for the rest of the board to see this. This is cool stuff.
Well, thank you very much. So the big picture here is, and I'm going to start off by saying we are not satisfied with our results here, but we do definitely have some shining lights in this that I'm going to share with you. The first piece of your packet there, Rod went to a superintendent conference, and he came back with this statement from an author named Colin Seal, who said, it's important to have balloons with Maslow. And as you know, over the past 3 years, especially during COVID, we have made great strides in ensuring that the needs of our students have been met. And so now we're at a point, and we're calling this really our ground level, to where we have to continue with Maslow, but we've got to make sure that we're hitting balloons and giving students the opportunity to think at a high level. And so that's been really the focus of our administrative meetings. Our MTSS meetings are all centered around student achievement, with still keeping our idea and our focus on and ensuring that our students have their needs met, especially with mental health. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But if you turn to your first page here, this is on our transparency page on the website. This is our benchmark scoring. And again, the scores are not where we want them to be, but we are trending in the direction we want to be. And if you look at all students in reading from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, they had an almost 15-point increase on grade equivalency. That means the students who are actually attaining their level of reading for their grade level. So we haven't had a number like that since, for many years, I'd say. And so we're very proud and happy with that. Some highlights even within the reading, where we had 15 points overall. Our economically disadvantaged students grew 14 points, and that's students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Female students, 13 points. Male students, 15 points. Our African-American students had the greatest growth with 17 points. Our math, we increased, but our groups were mixed overall with the achievement. If you look at our next page, I'm proud of this page, and I'm not going to say that these students necessarily grew because they participated in tutoring, but I can say that if you were in the tutoring program, you performed better than your peers. And so, and the reason I give that disclaimer is because some of our students were tutored in math, for example, but we measured their overall performance with reading. If you look at K-1 with our students, our overall general students had a half a year's growth, and this is within 2 months, from the time that we benchmark in the fall to the winter. There was a 2-month period. So we had a half a year growth, K-1. Students who were in tutoring actually had 1 month more growth than our base students at K-1. If you look through 2-5, half a year's growth, we had a month and a half additional with that, a grade level increase. If you were in tutoring, you had a month and a half growth over the general students. 6-8 had about a month and a half growth over the 0.23 or the 2-month growth of our students. And then 9th through 12th, well, they're looking at about 3 months growth if you participated in tutoring on the STAR assessment. So we're very pleased with these numbers. Again, as Rod mentioned, we put about $2 million into books, into our summer programs. We've had 3 beautiful years of summer programs that have been really intense for our students and build curiosity and, working with the idea of STEM. And so we believe that we're seeing the results of that money being well spent in that capacity. Our tutoring program was excellent, where we were able to tutor about 200 students. And so I'd love if we could find a way to continue that, because I believe without a shadow of a doubt that is what impacts our students, that one-on-one time with that teacher mentor. But very pleased with our teachers and with our students and the growth that they've made, and I appreciate all the teachers who participated in our tutoring program. We have that going on right now also, and I look forward to presenting even more information and data to you at the end of the year as to how those students performed also. Our next page is, this is the percent attaining 40th percentile in growth, and I want to stress that it's growth. It's not a benchmark. This measures how students grow from assessment point to assessment point. And so STAR recommends that if you hit the 40th percentile, that would be considered benchmark growth. As you can see in these categories, with reading and math, most of our students grew from fall to winter. We had growth in all, but maybe one position there on each of them. Rod made an interesting observation with our students. Rod, the reading and math point that you made with students who are already at benchmark?
So as you notice on the original sheet, that was grade level equivalency, and we had more students hit reading, almost half, versus math, which was a lower number. So meaning more students were at grade level in reading than they were in math. But then you look at this page here, this is a growth page. And so you may ask yourself, well, if math was lower, how come on this chart math is so much higher? Well, because this chart is growth. And so obviously, having some lower scores on the first page allowed a lot more students to grow because they weren't quite where they were originally. And the reading had already hit benchmark, so you don't see quite as much growth as you do in the math. Hence why the math is stronger on this page, smaller on the first, and the reading is opposite of that. But just to see some of these scores in the 60s and 70s, those of you that have been coming to data meetings, we haven't seen 70s since pre-COVID, so that's what was pretty exciting to us.
Yeah, thought that was a great aha for sure. The last piece I want to share with you is something I'm particularly proud of. It's an iWellness platform that we use, and at any time it can give us feedback as to how our students are doing in school with relationships and connectedness. This is a great survey. It's minor in its questioning. It's really kind of assesses the mood of a student at any given time. This is something that I would hope that we could get in the fall, especially where we could get kind of a weekly snapshot of how our students are doing, then we can look at trend data over time. But I appreciate the high school being willing to jump in and give us one data snapshot with iWellness, and this is a 2-minute survey that has 7 questions, and those questions are, do you feel happy? Do you feel safe at school? Do you feel like you can handle challenges? Do you feel connected to others? Do you think your friendships are healthy? Do you feel calm throughout the day? Do you have strong self-esteem? So the questions are not very heavy, but they are good indicators as to how students are doing and how they might be connecting at school. And they're able to answer by saying not at all, some days, more than half the days, or nearly every day. And so with our high school, we had 3 grade levels who were able to participate with this, but ask them to give the students this for a snapshot. And this is the data that we got. This is a one-time piece. We would never make decisions based on one piece of data with iWellness, but this would help us understand what the reports look like and what's at our fingertips. We would hope to have several pictures of this over time, but with our 336 completed surveys, 140, the algorithm that iWellness sets up identified 146 of our students as being green, meaning that they answered more than half or nearly every day for the 7 questions. 156 of our students were in the yellow watch tab, and then we had 34 students who were in the red surveys. An interesting piece to this is if a student were to answer not at all on all 7 questions, they would immediately trigger an email to administration or whoever we set up for that piece. There are students in here, and you can go, it can tell us by name. And so if you would see a student maybe over 2 or 3 days, or 2 or 3 snapshots who might remain at red, then that would be a signal, hey, make sure that to check in, make sure the students are feeling connected with other students, that kind of thing. It gives us that kind of specific information. On this given day, as you can see that yellow dot in the middle of the page, that tells us that for the most part, the students who surveyed were on watch. And I'll tell you an interesting piece. As I clicked through the survey, was when I clicked and filtered by male and female, the females were yellow, the males were green. So immediately with this one snapshot, that tells us a lot about, even the females at the high school and how they're feeling. And, if we had trend data over time to show us that, and especially if they're talking about self-esteem, that would trigger that we need to do something to ensure that the females in our high school have programs and things that to help them increase their self-esteem. So this is very powerful data, and we're looking forward to really jumping in the fall. We want to do a slow rollout, but our kids are coming to school with this, whether they're red or not. They're coming to school that way, and we feel like it's best if we know that and we're able to intervene when we can. And it could be so much as just a pat on the back and saying, hey, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. Just checking in. It's a way to help us really connect better with our students. So real excited about iWellness. Any questions that I can answer about our winter data?
I have a couple questions.
All right.
So first on this iWellness.
Mm-hmm.
So we've only sent it out one time, you said?
Yes.
So if we did it in the future, would it be done at different times of the day? So perhaps if somebody's taking the survey right after class that they don't care for or whatever, that maybe on a different time of day, the response may be different?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we did this, we did it during advisory, and the plan would be to do it during a time like advisory, so that teacher has the opportunity, because really our advisory is built around SEL practices.
Okay.
And so that's the best time for them to be able to kind of reach out with the students. We can put it anytime we want. And so, yes, if we wanted to get different trend data, we could absolutely change the times. The only requirement with iWellness is that every student would have to take it within 24 hours to be considered valid for that time frame.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have one more question.
No, that's okay.
In regards to the tutoring part, how is it decided that they go in, is tutoring optional, or they're placed into a tutoring by their test score?
So for the first semester, we told teachers that they could have the opportunity to choose the students within their classrooms or work with the building principal, and if a principal had a student that would really benefit, they could assign them that way. This second round, we asked our principals to get more involved with the process so that we can really hone in on students that would benefit from this tutoring program. If we do it, if we continue to do it, if there's a way that we can work out in the future, it would absolutely be building-wide. But for first semester, it was teachers could have the opportunity and option just to tutor their students if they chose to.
And just back to iWellness, on the question of time, the secondary does have an advisory period, like Jim said, but the third through fifth grade students, obviously it's one teacher all day long, so that could happen at any point in the day, but it would still be that teacher.
Right, I understand that. I just meant like right after lunch where they're mad
Right,
because
you
they don't
got
want to
it.
go back from lunch.
Or recess?
I've got a couple questions. So first on the goal for the year, as well as, our goal for the winter benchmark, we set that at 80% for both math and reading. Obviously, we didn't reach it for the winter. Is there an expectation that we will reach it for the end of the year, or are we expecting that we will fall short of that?
I would not expect us to be attaining 80% at the end of the year, if I'm being transparent with you. That is our ultimate goal. We have goals that are set up. Our goals are set up in MyKIP for 5 years. A goal would be that every one of our classes attain the 80th percentile, but I don't want to say something I don't think can happen. At this point in most of our classes, like 60% would be a wonderful goal that we'd love to see and continue that trend.
Yeah, I would say that the state is averaging in that 30 to 40% of people hitting benchmark. Ever since COVID, you've seen that huge decrease. But even before COVID, the reason we have an 80% is if you look at the MTSS model, the thought is without any intervention, 80% of our kids should be able to meet grade level expectations. And then with some intervention, the next 10 to 15% should be able to make. And then with very, very targeted intervention, that last 5 to 10%. So the 80% comes from the MTSS model of, in general, without any extra intervention, 80%. But with that being said, even well before COVID, there was only one building that ever hit a complete 80% all the way across the board, up and down every single grade level. So it's a pretty high watermark. Most kids need some intervention to get help to hit that benchmark.
Okay. My next question would be, I don't remember if you answered this or not, maybe I missed it. Why was the math so much less than the reading in terms of overall growth? Was that mentioned?
So, no, it was not mentioned. We mentioned the overall growth. We had 4 points, but that our groups were mixed. I believe it's that we focus so much on reading, that we do believe, first and foremost, that all of our teachers are reading teachers first. And so I think that we just need to take some intentional steps to address the math, but our focus absolutely is reading in all classes, all grade levels.
The only other question I would have is, there were some categories on the list that actually saw a decrease, and not just, a little decrease. There was a couple that had a pretty substantial decrease in their overall scores. Is there any general reason for that, or a specific reason, or is that, what can we attribute to that in the decrease?
Yeah, as far, any decrease that you would see in math, I would have to say is because of our focus on reading. And I would agree that we need to get more intentional with our math, for sure. But reading has been our focus, and if we have a decline in math, it would be for that reason.
Okay. That's all the questions I have.
So Jack, were you looking at 8th grade in particular?
No, I was looking at.
Oh, okay. So I just, as we look at these, I think ask questions of Jim and Rod, even outside of this meeting, because this has been going on, I think, how many years we've been doing this?
I would say close to 15.
Okay. And so there's a lot of historical data, of course, then we had COVID. But I think what's encouraging, and I love your question, Jack, but what's encouraging, we are seeing improvement, but we can't overlook those areas that we're not.
Right.
I have a follow-up question. Is there anything that, given our pretty significant investment and focus on science and technology and engineering, is there a way, other than math, and we know reading is inherent in all of the subjects, is there a science-like STAR assessment or something that you anticipate having in the next several years? I've always wondered if there's a way to assess.
We're smiling
are
because
using.
with STAR, not so much, but there are assessments out there that do the science piece, like in WEA, for example. No measure within what we're currently using with STAR that would measure science.
Okay. I'm just wondering, if there's something that we as a board should think about, keeping in mind is that we're investing in that area of a child's education. How do we make sure that we're doing it the right way and applying those innovative practices and that we can assess it?
How do we do it on our own? Can we do it on our own? Is there a system that allows us to do that?
So just for people who are new or haven't been part of data meetings before, this data benchmarking, which, like I said, we've been doing for 15 years, became law just a couple years ago during COVID. You see at the top, 98, put my reading glasses, 98B and 104H. We were doing MTSS and RTI 10 years before people were even compelled by law to do it. And so when you hear benchmarking, that is a formative assessment. It's a dipstick. So it's a moment in time, and that just shows you kind of like, this is kind of how our kids are doing. That's different than a comprehensive assessment you might get from the state, right? At the end of the year, you take an M-STEP test, and that's kind of an overall performance and knowledge base of what you have accumulated, not only over the year, but over your course of schooling. And then we can get into all sorts of other types of tests that may be used in psychological or national assessments. So you always have to kind of look at what data are you looking at and what are you using. So when you talk about performance data at the end of the year by the state, we do measure science and social studies, math and reading, and you have those tests all the way from 3rd through 11th grade. And so that's where some of the data digs come in when you want to look at that. But as far as a benchmark where you just get, and that's, by the way, as I see that iWellness is still up there, that's what iWellness is. It's also a benchmark. It's a dipstick. It's a moment in time. It's not a comprehensive overall look at the person. So what the state has required us of is we know that as you can track kids over time and kind of just see where they are, you can then adjust your instruction throughout the year. And that's the purpose of reporting out in this manner. So no, there's not a lot of tools that do every subject in a dipstick or benchmarking type manner. The one that we are aware of, as Jim mentioned, is NWEA. And I think that probably in our state, 60-40, 50-50, people use things like STAR, some use things like NWEA. They have a little different type of scoring system. If we were to switch over, we would lose all historical data. However, there are always reasons to look at it. We look at it almost every year. The state, through, and I forget what line item it is, but they do an assessment reimbursement. We've been getting for about 6 or 7 years, anywhere between $40,000 and $55,000 for these programs. And I think the reason we get reimbursement now is because now it's required by law to report out on them. So if we switched over, we might be able to have something like that, but not in a formative setting like this. You do have it, the formative classroom assessments in your social studies and science classes, and taking a look at the competencies, your 6th through 12th grade teachers would have those type of things that they look at when they meet in grade level PLCs, but not as a district data point, unless we switched benchmarking tools.
Right.
One more question, if that's all right. Seeing as our targeted tutoring has been doing well, I mean, you're seeing overall increases across every grade level. Should we as a board, I'm asking for your opinion, but of course the board's decision, should we be focusing more on an initiative to increase our targeted tutoring programs? Do you think this would be beneficial to increase this type of program overall?
I absolutely think that it would be beneficial. I know that it would be rather expensive, but nothing can replace one-on-one time with a teacher. I mean, that's powerful.
Just jumping ahead, Carrie, what are we doing for summer school this year? I'm probably stealing some people's thunder thinking about it. I'm sure everybody's thinking about, what are we going to do? Where's the money coming from? We all want to do that program, but help us out here. What's the plan, Rod?
So we have one more year of ESSER 3 money to hit summer school, and so just like Jim said, there's a second semester of this tutoring happening. That's with ESSER 3. We'll have another year of summer school with ESSER 3. And then to Jack's point, the question will be, how do you want to fund it going forward? So as I said earlier in the finance presentation, federal at-risk and state at-risk money is allocated specifically for this type of work. So if we were to create some sort of stipend schedule, similar to what you would see with coaches or club sponsors, that kind of stipend. We could set up the tutoring program. As with everything that we do in schools, as you saw, 90% is salaries and benefits. So what we were able to use was capture the high amount of grant monies coming in for ESSER to create very large stipends to attract people. Even at summer school, we ended up having to go out of the district for like 12 of our 40 teachers at that high rate. So the minute that rate comes back down into a normal range, or even if it's a medium range, if we supplement with, say, Title I or 31A, you're going to lose the attraction. A lot of people obviously are attracted to doing this work because we're paying so well, which is why it's been so successful. So I think it's just a matter of, we got one more full round of this money, and then we'll just have to make some decisions. Every year, Travis and the principals submit their 31A report. He does a fantastic job of trying to identify. That's why it's so important to get accurate data, because when that report gets submitted to the state, that's when your number comes out, and then that's what that title money
That's what it's based on.
and the 31A is based on, because that's your at-risk kids.
Good job, Travis. Keep those numbers up.
And when you can identify those kids, those numbers grow. So most districts don't go backwards in their identification of free and reduced lunch. So I would hope that as we increase and they continue to pour money, as the state has, put money for mental health, wellness, and at risk, that we would be able to tease apart and keep some of that going. But short answer, one more round.
So we're going to have a robust summer school this summer.
Yep.
Next summer, we're going to
We're gonna,
punt and kick and see where we're at with how much money's coming.
we always ran a decent program of probably 75 grand that encompassed every level. We'll just have to be more modest from the $350,000 program.
Thank you, Kara. I'm sure
Sure.
you're going to probably ask that.
I
question.
was, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate that. And I'm sure it was on everybody's mind. Any other questions for Jim or Rod? No? Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for
Kitchen.
presenting. It's a great-
Wonderful.
Great report.
All right, the last item on our discussion items is the Virtual Learning Center report.
Come on
Ms.
up.
Morgan.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
She's our dual principal.
That I am. So thanks for letting me come and share a little bit about what the last 10 months have been like at the Virtual Learning Center. Our vision and mission there, enhancing the quality of learning and teaching while meeting the learning style or needs of our students. Go ahead, Travis. So this is our team as we currently exist, minus our teachers there. We are actually now, as of today, 133 enrolled students from grades 3 through 12. We have 89 plus adult ed students. That's above and beyond our students that we see on a daily basis in the traditional setting, if you will. And that is a plus because our adult ed program is continuing to grow rapidly. We're one of the probably most flexible adult ed programs here in the state. We have people coming as far away as Kalamazoo, Saginaw, down in Macomb County. Most of these are adults who are working, have families, and have bills and responsibilities. And so when programs require that they have a certain amount of attendance to the program, it definitely puts a little bit of a damper on their flexibility and ability to attend. So we do have that flexibility and we offer some alternatives for them. So our adult ed program is growing rapidly. But we are basically two directors under one. I oversee the whole program along with 3 coaches, a full-time teacher that we're still looking for right now. We have 4 to 5 teachers that come in for an hour a day during their planning hour, whether that be from middle school or high school. We have 2 high school teachers that work on the backside, grading for several of our programs or classes, and that's about 3 hours a week. And then I have 1 elementary teacher, actually from Gaines, who works with me for some of our elementary students, meeting with them, and then monitoring those programs there. And then on the adult ed side, she employs a navigator or mentor mentors. So that is on the bottom picture there, Mrs. Rothney and Miss O'Neill. So that is our adult ed program. 2 teachers that work with her specifically on our Wednesday evenings. Stan Page comes over, he's the social worker from the high school. And then Jody Guzak, who is the counselor, is actually dual-rolled. She works with me at the VLC as well with our high school students. And then the upper portion over here, go back for me, Travis. Of course, I have Mrs. Ferris in the back there. She is the voice of the phone, and she is the brain. When I am not around, I say she actually is my chaos coordinator. That's what I call her. And then the 3 life coaches, Mrs. Wells, Mr. Look, and Miss Bloss. And then Mrs. Powell is our reading specialist. And so we work really hard together. Our building then, go ahead, Travis. I show you pictures because you guys invested in building and site monies, and so we were able to get quite a bit of new furniture this year. So we've kind of created some welcoming spaces and tried to make it comfortable for the kids to come in. So new desks, new tables. We put some of the furniture out in the hallway to create kind of a chill space for them, you know, whether that be during lunch or breakfast times, or just we have break times throughout the day, so it gives a place for the kids, or if they just need to step away for a minute, so they can go and sit on one of those comfy couches, or the egg chairs as we call them. And then we also created 2 new office, semi-private office spaces in the main office, along with a waiting area space there. All right, go ahead. So these are pictures of just some of our students, not all by any stretch of the imagination, obviously, but our daily attendance continues to rise. I believe it was last week at one point we had almost 30 in the building. So through the COVID years, we were lucky if we had 8, maybe. I think Rod jokes with me about that all the time, like 8 students. I said, no, there's way more than that. So about 30. And then we have a wide variety that come at various times throughout the course of the day or through the week. It just kind of depends. We do offer several different things throughout the week, so it allows our kids to kind of choose when they want to be in the building, or they come to connect with their mentors or teachers at various times. Okay, Travis? So there's just another couple pictures of things we have going on there. So like I said, it's been a busy year. During the 10 months, hired a school social worker, or school counselor, a life coach. We've revised and updated the parent handbook, revised and updated the course guidebook, which you'll be approving, I think, later on tonight. The new furniture. We launched over 30 new courses, which you guys gave permission to, which allowed us to add health and PE, electives, and CTE courses to our guidebook over the course of the year. We've restructured the coursework and how it's assigned to students. When I got there, I opened up a student account at one point, and I was like, I'm overwhelmed as an adult. There was like 20 or 25 courses that the student, was needing to take. Well, at any given point in time, when you have kids that struggle at different points in time, just sometimes they need just to be a little bit more focused. So we crashed, we're crashing all the courses. We crashed the courses and relaunched them for students, which allowed them to focus on just 6 as if they were completing a semester. And this has actually allowed them to stay focused on those 6, and then as they finish them, then we add in courses so that they can get their credit recovery under control and in check. And so we've probably had the highest, according to the life coaches, and they've been there much longer than I have, the highest rate of course completion that we've had in several years. We did increase our reading specialist time. I love having her there. She not only does work one-on-one with the students, but she also does run book clubs and seminars for our students where we do work with the life skills and lots of different things, like how do you write a resume? How do you go to a job interview? What do you do in these situations? How do you handle conflict with peers or conflict at home? So just really working through the things that they face each and every day. And when I see the students come in at different points in time, because there are some students that come in specifically for those seminars or for the book studies, to be right with Mrs. Powell. We did go ahead and restructured our staff work schedule. I think I've mentioned before that we do have students who, they are mostly virtual. So like as any teenager, if you give them the opportunity to stay in bed till noon, they probably will. And so then because we were only working till about 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock, well, that's about the time they're finally coming to terms with it's time to get up and get moving. And so then when they needed help with their coursework, there was nobody there to help them. So we've created late afternoon and evening hours with our life coaches and with Mrs. Powell so they can actually make those connections. We have open Google Meets, or they have scheduled times that they meet with specific students based on those needs. So and they're busy. There's not a downtime or down minute for those ladies when they're working with that. And then I think one of the biggest things that has allowed us to really harness our all of the stuff we've got going on is we developed a semester pacing guide. So getting it so that students know from week to week exactly what their percentage of course completion needs to be. And one of the things by doing this then is we were able to increase parent communication because we were able to actually say, well, your student should be at 11% this week. What are they doing or what are they not doing? How are they doing? And the parents actually get a weekly email so they can see that progress percentage. But it's also the way that we're tracking and looking at student attendance. So if you are significantly behind, by a week or two from what your course completion should be, then you get an attendance letter. So this has increased then now kids who are not wanting to go to truancy, and so they're starting to engage a little bit more with all that is going on. And it also raises the conversation with parents at home when they say, well, my student says I'm doing this. Well, let me walk you through that again so we can show it to you. So it's really increased the conversation that we're having, and it's making it much more structured. And then overall, we're continuing to restructure and work with the application process between middle school and high school. We are getting more and more middle school students. And overall, then, we incorporated activities for the students. So not just the book clubs, not just the academic stuff, but we're throwing in other things for the kids to be entertained by, if you will. So when it's kind of incentivizing, if you get your work done, then we have paintings on Thursday, or we have create your own music if you so wish to create your own music. And we've got some really incredibly talented students, and so it's fun to watch them, I don't want to say rush, but finish the work that they have to do so that they can engage in these downtimes that we offer at different points in time. So, moving forward, although I was not able to have the kids here, I did ask them questions because I told them I'm coming to meet with you. So what are the things they would like the board to know? And I did give these to you so that you can take these with you. But just a couple of really quick things. I asked them 4 specific questions. The first one, what are the things you like or appreciate the most about the Virtual Learning Center? And as you read through that, I think the things that stand out to me are the fact that we are a little bit smaller. So for those students who have struggled with anxiety or mental health issues, it does allow them a facility or a place where it is a little bit easier on their anxiety. They have commented over and over about people being supportive. They feel like it's a fairly non-judgmental place where they can ask questions, and they know that we're going to be honest with them, lovingly honest sometimes. They don't necessarily always want to hear what we have to say, but they also are really good about taking that information and using it as they move forward. I asked them then, what are areas or ways that we can improve and grow, because we all have to look at that. Physical space is one thing that came up multiple times from kids, just having more availability to restrooms and other classrooms. I say restrooms because if you've ever been to our building, we are just one little wing at the middle school. And we have 2 single stalls. We set aside one for staff because we have multiple staff coming and going, and oftentimes we can't just wait. But that leaves one single restroom for all of the kids. So if you have 30-plus kids in the building, that makes it a little complicated to that bathroom is always in use. I swear it's always in use. Somebody's in there. But if they're taking their break and they like to use their break time to do that, if the line gets long, it makes it a little bit more complicated. And then the other thing is being able to control the room temperatures. Our building has struggled a little bit with it being too hot or too cold, so we actually do provide blankets for the kids when it is too cold. But RC's been working with us on that, but that's one thing the kids said, can you improve this for us? They mentioned the better lunch, which includes quality and portion size. When the portion size, I think of our growing boys, and when it's one Bosco stick, I think they could eat the whole pizza, quite frankly. It makes it very difficult for them. And then the last thing is teachers. They want more time with teachers so that when they're working on their classwork, that they have the ability to ask the question in the moment. We do have the teachers that come during their planning hours. However, if a student is working on biology in the morning, when our science teachers come in the afternoon and they've moved on to the next subject, they're not thinking about their biology questions any longer. And so then they don't often, even if we ask or even if we try to make the connection, they don't often want to stop what they're working on to go back to biology. So then they skip the question asking. And so we continue to work with that, but I think having the time with teachers is the one thing that kids talk about. All right, go ahead. And the last couple of things here, some of the things we've done, I actually brought, because they brought up painting multiple times, in front of you are several of the most recent paintings that the students have done. We just let them have their creative juices and go, but just so you guys can see some of the things that we've been doing there. They've enjoyed Christmas parties, count day drawings, we've grilled out. They love that we have access to snacks all throughout the day, fidget toys, and painting. Painting just kept coming up. And I think the last thing, they're virtual Fridays. So we do have students in the building Monday through Thursday. That we use Friday as our opportunity to connect with the students who are fully virtual. And it also gives me an opportunity to meet with the staff as necessary. And then that last column, I'll let you read those for yourself, but the general gist is the kids are looking forward to, as I set goals for this remainder of the year, finish their classes, and many of them graduate. And some of them, this has been on their list for a little while, but they're actually seeing it as a possibility for the first time. All right. As we finish out the year then, from a high-level perspective, we are relaunching, as Tanner mentioned, the district backpack program. The first food delivery arrives Wednesday morning at 7:40 to our building, and then we will be putting those food allocation packages together and sending them off to our elementary buildings. There will be 72 that will go out. And so we're looking forward to engaging in community service with our students and allowing them the opportunity to give back to our own community here. We're going to continue to create sustainable systems. That's really what I'm after, is this is not just what we're doing for this year, but how do we continue to grow and become better than where we are. Graduation, mark your calendars, if you haven't already, is June 8th at 6 p.m. in our Performing Arts Center. And then we as well are prepping for summer school for 2023. And last but not least, goals and priorities for the coming year. I would love to see, as we continue to look at the transfer applications that come to us, the thing that stands out to me over and over again, and I've actually had conversation with high school and middle school counselors and administration, is the mental health, anxiety, depression. It comes up over and over again. I would love to have more access to having a school counselor and or social worker available for our students there. There are real situations that they're dealing with, and so having somebody that's trained available to them would be super, and provide additional support. I do know that we need to analyze and look at restructuring our instructional supports, just based on what I've seen, what I hear from students, and what I know is best. I mean, they can get a lot from the computer instruction, but there's a whole lot of difference. It's no different than the tutoring and the results that you see there. They could get more from having that one-on-one time with teachers. And then overall, looking at how we identify and restructure how we offer and provide supports to students who are credit deficient. I think one of the things that I'm most concerned about, if I were to express this, is when students are credit deficient and perhaps transfer to the VLC, if they choose to go fully virtual, there are many times I lose those kids. They are difficult to track, they're difficult to make contact with, and so I would love to see us be able to restructure how we do that, where we're using the online as a tool, but it doesn't leave them to disappear. We still need to find a way to help them. And part of that, I think, could be where we maybe require them to come to school every day. The challenge with that is I'm not structured in such a way where I can support that level or number of students within the building. And so I think we have to continue to ask ourselves some of those difficult questions so that we can move forward and be the best that we can be, and I know that we can be. So at the bottom I just put, I'm gonna dream big, set some goals, take some actions, otherwise they're just wishes. And I'd really like to see some of it come to fruition. Any questions you guys have?
I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
One, it sounds awesome and I want to be there, so.
Come on, I'm taking volunteers.
And I was fine, like I would be in school all the time if that was my option. But my question is, in regards to one of their concerns about teacher, like when you were talking about working on biology and that, do you have some ideas of how that could be made?
I do.
I'm saying you don't have to tell me right now on the spot.
Sure.
I'm just saying I'm all for, I mean, I understand that because I am a project-oriented person. I don't want to go back to A if I've already moved on to B, and odds are I will drop A. So I completely understand that. I'm just now thinking, okay, well, you know.
I do have some ideas, and I'd love to explore those.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a few, Jody.
Sure.
Is it okay? Or you go, Carrie. Go ahead. I've got several. I've been in the center, but I want to take a tour of it again.
Come on
And
over.
I think all the board members should. So how many people can you physically hold? I already had these questions before you started asking some of your concerns. How many people can you physically hold?
Physically, that would make sense, maybe 80 tops.
And we have 130 enrolled. And your goal is to have all the 130 enrolled, most of them to come in.
Correct.
So that's not going to happen until we figure something out there. And of the 30 kids that do come in on a regular basis, are they the same kids?
For the most part, it
Okay.
is.
So
Yeah.
that's your fear of losing the people that never, yeah. So we don't work, I talked to you about this the other day, Roger, and we had a long discussion about BLC.
Can I piggyback
So-
on that, Chuck?
Yeah.
Could it be done in a rotation instead of it so that?
Well, I think there's a rotation.
there is
They can come in
already.
a couple days and,
They can,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say it's a pretty functional hybrid program right now,
Yes.
so it could come in. I think the challenge exists is the continuity, so missing it every other day, and then, you know, I
They
have
get
a doctor's
depressed, they're
appointment
lazy, they
come
don't come in
up.
for 5
Yeah,
days.
exactly, yes,
that's what I'm looking at if we're going to keep the program and enhance it.
correct.
That was my second. Third question. How many mixture of children ages do you have in there in grades? What's the biggest,
I have a 6th grader that's
Yeah.
with me
I know they're all
most
middle
days,
school or high school, yeah?
all the way up to seniors who are 6th or 7th year seniors who are 19 or 20 years old.
Okay, so we have adults in there with some of the
Correct.
really little kids. That's my,
We try hard to, so one of the things I'm focusing
how
on
do we
now, because our
separate
middle
those?
school
Yeah.
is growing, so I have about 14, I think, middle school students total right now. So I try to keep my middle schoolers completely separate
Good.
from the high school students as much as possible. However, because I'm lacking in adult supervision part of the time, sometimes that's not always possible. And I also, we are one cafeteria, we are one restroom, we are one hallway. So there's just, even when we take breaks, even if I alter that, there's still that opportunity that they're going to potentially come in contact with one another.
what about the adult education people that are not seniors that may have been held back a year?
They come into the building at various times throughout the day. It's not a large number at any one given time. I'd say 3 to 5 tops, like total at one point in time. They're always, they're met at the front office area, and then they're walked to the adult ed room, so that we keep them as separated or as monitored as possible. Part of the restructure, and I've talked with Mrs. Rothney about this, that I would like to do is we do have as you come into the building, there's one room right off the vestibule area that I would love to turn into the adult education classroom or space. Part of doing that, though, or making that possible, is I need a permanent wall placed in there, and I haven't had the opportunity to get that done just yet. But that's a requirement from Pearson View as part of being a testing center for GED. So there's a few things, there's a few technical things, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, I think some of us need to go over there and take a physical look at it if we're going to help you constructively. And Rod gave me a lot of insight the other day on it because I was curious more so, although I've been over there several times, it's just hard to fathom virtual learning. You can stay at home and learn, but those kids still have to come in. And I wondered about the separation of the age groups. Me, I'm a safety person. We got to figure something out, I think, in the future. Give the kids the education, but have it cohesive for you so you don't have dealing with a 6th grader and over here and
Right.
all that. So I applaud you for what you're doing, and I applaud our administration. And that's it for me, board members. Gary?
Sure. I do have to ask you, how many adult ed folks do we have?
89 plus. There's 89 enrolled with a stack that continues to grow every day, that have like a few pieces of, they're missing a form that needs to be signed or a birth certificate, it just grows every day.
So can you remind us of the revenue for the district that goes along with that?
I could not give you the dollar signs.
On the adult eds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that. I can tell you exactly, we get the per pupil on 130 kids on the BLC side. But most of our,
It's not $9,000.
No.
But I do know there's money that comes along with it, because I'm thinking what you're looking at is maybe, expanding the physical space or doing some of these other things. I think we have to be aware of what the revenue that goes. And I do know it's an amazing program, and that we've graduated some folks that it's made a huge difference in their life. But I'm just curious. I don't know that I've ever known that number.
no, and it's grant funded, and we rely on the grant funding to keep it running. One of the reasons we have there's two reasons we have so many adults that use it. Number one, it's flexible, but number two, we run it on the cheap. So we're not making a ton, we're providing a service.
Obviously popular, though. if
It's
you are
very
attracting people
popular.
from all over the state.
Is there a cap on it with the grant funding? Like you can only take so many a term or?
I don't think there's a cap on the number, to my knowledge. It's more on just what resources you have available to provide the service to the students at any given point in time.
So you can shut it down if you say, hey, we just can't take any more adults in here or something.
I think we could delay some of them if we needed
I
to.
don't want you to do it, but I'm asking, because I know what Carrie's saying, and that's kind of my concern is, we have to physically look at it, figure out what we can do for you, and figure out where those funds are coming from, because it's not $9,000 per student, because if it was, we'd be in, we could do things. We have to figure out how we can accommodate you in the teaching.
And I wasn't implying it would just come from
No.
adult ed, but I think that's an important number
No,
for
that's-
us to
that's huge.
know.
We have to know
If we're
that
going to
is enough.
grow the program,
Yep.
what kind of allocations in a budget we would have to consider going forward.
Yeah, I can look up the number. I'll be honest with you, I allow Mrs. Rothney a little bit of room to run that program. We stay in touch a lot of times. We have some students of our own, that makes more sense, for whatever reason. So, we transfer back and forth, the same, so.
And I assume some of the adult ed people you never see anyways, except just on the computer, virtual.
Correct.
Especially the ones that
Yeah.
are out. I went to the graduation, and I was really impressed the last time around where we saw some of those young adults, and my heart doesn't get touched too much unless it's kids or dogs, but it was pretty impressive, and if it's a service we can provide, I didn't realize people were coming from outside our
Yes.
community, though.
We have a really decent relationship with Job Corps, where, in order to move up in certain things with Job Corps, they have been referring to us. The other thing too is we're finding more and more Speedway gas station, and I can think of several
Yeah.
other businesses
And Job
that
Corps
if
give us some money to help us out if we expand the program?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if there's,
Yeah.
is there anything such as that, Rod, where extra grant money comes in from other organizations?
Not that I'm aware of. Because it's virtual, we're at this point able to handle what we have. It's more about when kids come in.
It is. I think it's more about the GED program too. So, there's two tracks within adult ed. You could do the virtual program and use the APEX system, which we use for our virtual learning. And that's primarily if you're going to go the diploma route. If you want the diploma with the high school finished diploma. If you go the GED route, you do have to come into the building to take the test, because those tests have to be taken at a licensed center. And so, and that's, I always tell people, GED is not necessarily easier than going the diploma, the true diploma route. It makes it it's more difficult sometimes, even for students, because it is all test-based, and they have to get a certain score on every single test within the content area in order to basically meet the requirements, if you will. So sometimes that's upwards of 10 to 12 tests per content area that they have to pass.
Do they have to pass all at once, or can they stagger the?
They can stagger it, and there's actually some some pre-tests that they can take. So as they get ready to take the next test, they kind of have an idea of maybe what some of the questions are. And then they can go through and get some instruction or build their skills in those areas before they take the test. And they can take the test multiple times, but they're just not able to progress to the next test until they pass that test. So sometimes students, depending, are able to take more than one test at a time, but often that's not necessarily the case.
I have one last question. You mentioned you're going to reinitiate the backpack program, something near and dear to my heart. Who's going to be doing that? And are we limiting it to 72 elementary students because of funding or resources to assemble or whatever?
It's funding right now. It was what made the most sense because all of the allocations come in groups of 24. So in order to get from now to the end of the year, 72 was kind of the ideal number because we would be able to have enough money allocated for those 72. We would love to grow it. I know we've put it out there right now where people can give to the backpack program through the Eastern Michigan Food Bank, and they can allocate the money for Swartz Creek schools.
designate it,
Yep. And so that number is out there as well. I can share it again so that we would be able to increase our program. And the monies, if they were given this year, could be projected forward to next year. So we're going to have a little bit left over at the end of this year, and whether or not that pot of money essentially grows will determine whether we can continue to launch it in the coming year. It's about, the food bank says it's about $100, but when I speak to them, that number's growing because of the nature of food costs, which we all are experiencing. So it's upwards of $150 right now per student for an entire year, which is basically every other week, 2 weekends worth of meals that they would be able to prepare themselves. It's readily available to them. It wouldn't take a lot of extra work on the part of the student. So it looks at the independence of the students and being able to access the food at that point in time.
Well, we're going to figure that. Does Michelle Corbett put that? I don't think she puts that on the.
She and I have been working together.
That needs
Yes.
to be on social media, hard and heavy, to get some
Yeah,
donations.
it's
Especially
going
from
out
our
there.
community. We have a generous community, so.
Yeah.
That we need to do.
So
And then
who are the resources?
students are the ones that are going to be helping. We also have the women's group, the Women's Council here in Swartz Creek. I've been connected to them, and so we have multiple volunteers who will be coming in. They helped with the backpack program previously, and so they were already itching and asking me when we were going to get this launched. And so they were more than ready to get right in there and get going with the students.
Are you getting assistance from the administrators in the buildings to identify families
Yes.
who are in the
Yes.
greatest need at this point so that you can use that
Yes.
initial funding?
Mhm. So it's gone out already to principals. They are identifying their students within their buildings. Each one has been given a specific number, and it is per student. It's not like a family. So they have to kind of identify their top priorities right now, who that will be, and then we'd like to, like I said, grow that from there.
Great. I want to talk to you more about that.
Okay.
So anybody else? Go ahead, Jessica.
Number one, I want to say thank you for your dedication and commitment to the VLC and this program and all you've poured into it this last year. And your empathy and understanding for our students is spectacular, and just thank you.
I appreciate that.
Pouring
Thank
into
you.
these kids. And your goals and priorities for this year, and I'm sorry I don't know this, like the school counselor and social work, do you share that then with the high school or with the middle school? And some of what you'd like to do here, is it a matter of coordination, or is it a lack of actual staff to be able to provide that resource to the VLC?
So I currently employ and share the school counselor with the high school. She's currently paid out of a Schedule B position, and because of the nature of how that is, she can only work after school hours. She does help me throughout the course of the day. I'm going to be honest about that. Maybe I probably shouldn't put that out there, but she does help me, answers questions for
She can
me.
answer
you
questions
know.
over the phone. It's
Yeah,
not a big deal.
helps me throughout
Nobody
the course of the day.
cares. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're fine, Jody.
Just being very real and transparent. She does help me though, but her working hours are after school. And so she does connect with like specific students, but the reality is we have students throughout the course of the day, that need that connection. I currently don't have a social worker who is like supported or paid for out of VLC funds, but if I were to call on any one of the social workers, I know they would come, and they have in the past. So, but it's a matter of having that routineness, I guess, if you will, to be able to run groups and work with social, interactions that occur and have those conversations and talks that in the course of just all the things that we've got going on, we're not able to always foster those conversations in the way that we would. Not that we don't take the time, but I think it needs to be more in depth. And they're trained specifically for that. And then the teacher, I think the best way to say it is, the teachers are giving the 4 or 5 teachers that I have, they're already teaching 150 to 180 students in their respective buildings. And so when they come over, they have that hour, but it's just not the same as if that person were in the building all the time. And so right now, it's just, I don't know that over the course of the time of things shifting, so I go back to like Mary Crapo, when the virtual learning center, then the academy, was housed at Mary Crapo, there were full-time teachers, and there was a counselor in the building, and there was kind of a social worker that went over for half days. And then as we moved out of Mary Crapo and moved more to a virtual, then we kind of peeled back to that kind of full-time teacher that was there. And I think now we're in this like hybrid where we realize we're not really truly fully virtual. We might have some students that do that, but kids are needing to come back and have that content or contact, I should say, with the teachers. And I think that's hard when, they're only there for a short period of time and not able to get to the students in a way. And I think we could also restructure in a way where we could teach and use the platform as a resource, not the sole purpose or what they're learning from. There's a way to there's things within the platform currently that we're not able to employ or use with the students simply because I don't have the staff to make it as robust as it could be.
I was just wondering, what sort of community resources are the kids doing?
Right now, whatever they're doing on their own, and that's one of the things that we're trying to get back to, is, with the use of the backpack, for the backpack program, for instance, getting them engaged in that way right now. But because the students are not always there all the time, I have a general number of the ones that are going to be there, or the general students who will be there most of the time. But right now, we just don't even have the resources to even necessarily take them out. Like if I wanted to go somewhere and pay for the busing, the resources just aren't allocated in such a way where that's, feasible.
Anyone else? Thank you, Jody. Thank you
You're
for all
welcome.
you do. I know it's a bare bones staff and a wonderful program, and we appreciate the update and look forward to hearing more in the future.
Appreciate
And
it.
I
Thank
want
you.
to know more about the backpack program.
You can
very
always,
soon.
you know where to find me.
I know I do. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. We have 3 items on our board action items, beginning with the approval of the 2022-23 budget amendment resolution that's before you, based on the information that Rod shared earlier. Can I get a motion for approval?
I support.
Okay. Chuck and Jack. Any comments or questions? Let me find my resolution here. All right. Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the 2022-2023 budget amendment resolution as presented. Sue, can you do roll call, please?
Holly Jarvis,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey.
Yes.
Carrie Germain.
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Jessica LaNave,
Yes.
Kim Winter,
Yes.
Andrea Fick.
Yes.
All right, that's it. That's 7. Thank you so much. We can continue to pay our bills and Rod's happy. All right. Next, we have the approval of the 2023-2024 VLC course guide that was shared with you electronically. I would entertain a motion unless you want to share information first.
Just going to remind you that we yearly adopt the secondary course guides, as that is the curriculum that the students use to graduate, and so Jody has revamped it. We just adopted the high school one so that they can start signing up for classes, so I know that we did a later adoption of the VLC because of what Jody was working on, but this would put us right back into that late winter adoption so that they can move forward with planning for next year.
So I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Support.
Jack and Jessica?
And just discussion on it real quick, Carrie.
Sure.
Did you review it all, Jim? Not that particular one? But it falls all in the criteria of the laws, right, Jody? Everything's good with it?
Yes,
Because I haven't had a chance to review it. It's my fault, so
it is.
I'm trusting your judgment.
Sure, it's basically the same one that you saw and approved back, I think it was late summer, maybe.
Okay.
So it's basically all the same courses.
Thank you. That's all I have, Carrie. Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the 2023-2024 VLC course guide as presented. Sue, can you do roll call, please?
Kim Winter,
Yes.
Carrie Germain.
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Holly Jarvis,
Yes.
Andrea Fick,
Yes.
Jessica LaNave,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey.
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. And thank you again, Jody. Finally, we have the approval of the middle school roofing bid recommendation.
So as we talked about at the last meeting, we did have a meeting of getting into a cooperative bid for this specific roofing, and because it's a cooperative bid through the TIPS program, we can then use the quotes as given to us in the packet. RC has taken a look at summer projects and thought, since we had that meeting and all went well and everyone was impressed, that we might as well start getting a jump on those projects. So this is sinking fund money as we do all of our summer repairs, and this would tackle 3 of the long hallways at the middle school.
Okay, with that, need a motion for approval.
So moved.
I'd like to make an amendment to that motion. That we go with Swears, is that what we're going?
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yes, it is Swears.
yes, okay. Yeah, all right, just so that's clear, because there's 3 of them.
Support.
Okay, Jack and
Thank you.
Andrea. Okay, any other comments or questions? Be it resolved that the Swartz Creek Community Schools Board of Education approves the Swartz Creek Middle School roofing wings 100, 300, and 400 to Swears, Eavestrough, and Roofing Company, Inc., with a total bid price of $187,809. Sue, can you do roll call, please?
Holly Jarvis,
Yes.
Jessica LaNave,
Yes.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Andrea Fick,
Yes.
Jack Sayer,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey.
Yes.
Kim Winter.
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you so much. Motion passes. Thanks, everyone. Finally, we have an opportunity for public comment. I see we have one person in the audience who could publicly comment. If you'd like to address the board, please step forward, state your name, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I'm getting a no, I'm not interested. All right, moving on. We have comments and questions from the board. Anyone like to start? Go ahead.
Number one, even though she's not here, she's celebrating a special family event. I'd really like to acknowledge Chris Gray's service again to our district and the phenomenal work that she's done, and as our business director of finance. She's done a spectacular job, and it's been a delight to work with her in the finance committee, and I really wish her all the best. And again, Mrs. Morgan, thank you so much for all that you do for both schools and all of our students, and I really appreciate your presentation tonight, and especially hearing the comments from the students as well, thinking about how Tanner is going to be doing the roundtable for the high school. It is really nice to hear the direct comments from our students from the VLC, so thanks so much for sharing all of that. And then lastly, I forgot to ask Rod beforehand, and I didn't look, that MASB Region 5 has candidates for the Board of Directors, and I did not see that on our agenda. MASB, I think, was supposed to send that out, I think I read by the last Friday in January, and actually our board's decision, our nomination is supposed to be in by the first Wednesday in March. Or actually, or it might be March 1st, I think I read. But, so, I'm just going to tell you now, as somebody who knows a couple of the candidates, my suggestion, and I would like to put it out there, that our vote and support be for James Johnson from Carmen Ainsworth. And I don't know if we need to vote on that tonight, because we will not have another board meeting.
And why do you feel that way?
He has been spectacular. He was on the Governmental Relations Committee and came back to the county school board meeting and gave updates. He's been very involved in MASB itself. I think you saw it as the vice chair. He is always responsive and thoughtful and considerate and well-informed and very approachable. So if you have a question, comment, or concern, and he pays attention to what's going on through the whole region, not just his own district.
When do we vote on that?
Well, I think that's got to be tonight, actually.
So Sue or I have not received that information.
Yeah, usually we get it and we have a,
So, I mean, we can vote. We're not going to have another meeting before March 1st. That's up to you.
I suggest that, I mean, I don't go to those meetings, Jessica goes to them, and we're going to use, I think I made this comment last year, is that we pick a person off of our board to go and give us the pertinent information on what we need to do. Well, it's not a, a done thing, but
Yep.
I trust your judgment on whoever you choose, because you go, unless there's some other discussion on it, and I don't know if we got to vote on it today or not.
I think we should, because
I mean,
we don't meet again, and just to be on the safe side, if in fact the due date is March 1st or early in March.
Yes.
Then we will have already done that.
I agree with you, Madam President.
If you have any other questions.
I think there needs to be other discussion from other board
Yeah.
members, but I'm just putting in my 2 cents now that I've done in the past. I support whoever goes to those board meetings, because we don't really have, unless we have some personal knowledge, we don't have a lot of knowledge. We have to depend on our fellow board members. Thank you.
So he currently represents us at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and has been for, I don't know how many years. Do you know how many years?
He has been involved with MASB and the Government Relations Board when I became a representative to the County School Board Association. He was involved, or that might have even been his first year, so at least the last 4 years.
Do you know how many people are running? Just because I've only seen stuff from him and Richard.
Those are the only two that I know of.
How many positions
For
are
our
open?
region. There are actually, I don't know, each region gets to select a candidate to give their support to, and if I remember.
We're Region 5, so we'll have one person who's elected overall to become the Region 5 representative
Right.
as a board member for MASB.
I don't know of any of the other candidates.
Is Region 5 like Genesee County, or is it a bigger area?
It's larger than
Okay.
Genesee County, and he already travels, I know it goes all the way up into the thumb.
So is
And
this
travel.
like we as a board, say we support this one person, so each school board, then they tally those votes. So if there's 100 school districts, instead of taking 700, they take 100 votes.
That's right.
Okay.
So any other questions for Jessica? I want to entertain her motion that she has on the floor to nominate or at least support Mr. James Johnson for the Region 5 School Association Director, Board of Directors.
Support.
I have a question. We all have to agree on this one person? Is that the way?
We're gonna vote on it.
We're doing this?
Majority of us are
Okay.
gonna vote on it.
All right.
And so if you don't know, you can abstain, you could vote yes, no, I mean, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
So Jessica, I have a nomination and a second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Sue, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure can. Andrea Fick,
Yes.
Chuck Melkey,
Yes.
Carrie Germain,
Yes.
Holly Jarvis,
Yes.
Kim Winter,
Yes.
Jessica Lenave,
Yes.
Jack Sayer.
Yes.
7 yes.
Thank you. So we'll be supporting Mr. James Johnson as our Region 5 representative. All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I was just gonna say that I don't know who was aware, but I did go ahead and go to the Humane Society with the kids that were reading.
And
They-
thank you very much. I
They
was
were
bringing it
very
up.
surprised that Chuck was not with me.
I'm very disappointed, but we're gonna get the VLC students to do it.
Yeah.
Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was a great time, and I did ask how students were selected. I'm not gonna discuss that here, but I do know that whatever they are using for their selection process, I did get to see those kids open up their shell just from being around the animals, and they didn't always read to them, and that's okay, but just to see them interact, it really was a good time.
I told you to call me,
And it was
Holly, I forget
beneficial.
things.
I'm sorry.
Although it's kind of my program, but I want you can co-fly, do whatever you want. And when are we gonna have the next one, Mr. Rod? Just to piggyback on Holly's question, you know?
We do have Deke, who's lined up to go next.
Oh, man, you guys are.
Is there
sick.
somewhere that this stuff is like posted, so like I would be able to potentially look into going?
We need to get Michelle to put it on social media, don't we, Rod?
That's a great idea.
Can we do that? I don't think it's on our social media page.
Before or after, because going before, does it become a security issue?
Yeah, you can't just let anybody.
Yeah, I don't
meet
know.
the
Well, I
kids
guess we could
there.
do it afterwards.
To the,
Did you ride on the bus with the kids, Holly?
I did not,
You just
because
met 'em up there?
I didn't want to, I didn't know what was okay, so I did not, I just met them up there. They did take photos of the group together at the end. I do know that Elms did have a date set to go back again sometime in March with different
It's a big
students.
turnout for the kids, isn't it? They love it.
Yes, and it was great. And honestly, not side note, I loved the fact of actually going in there, I think for the first time ever, and every kennel not being full, which warms my heart too, that they're not over capacity. So that's great that, and they got to show the kids around. I didn't know there was a surgery center in there. I had no idea.
It's very elaborate from what it doesn't,
Yes.
people don't realize what they do for the pets in this area that get
Yes,
abandoned.
100%.
Yep.
And it really is beneficial to, and there were older people there playing with animals or just walking animals. Like, they do a lot beneficial just for mental health in general of being around pets, for those that like pets. I could have done without the snake, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's not really a pet, I don't think.
No,
I
no.
won't get into it. Some there's reptile lovers up there, but,
I have a reptile that I love too, but not a snake.
yeah, I got it. Thank you, Holly. That's so great that you went. I feel bad now.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks for sharing that, too.
My wife was out there the other day wandering around anyways. I won't let her pick up any more strays.
All right, if there are no more comments, I do want to reiterate some of what Jessica said.
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead first.
Just so I don't forget. I did speak to Cora Alexander's mom, and she put me in touch with Cora Alexander, who was making that film. Cora has not called me back yet, but her mom believes that she's still editing the film. So as soon as I get some more information, I'll let us know.
There's about 3 hours of film there that we walked around and hopefully she edited out my 4-letter words once in blue fell down.
Maybe that's why she's
Maybe
having
it's
trouble.
probably what she's having a hard.
that's why she.
Yeah, she's probably having a hard time editing that because I tripped a couple of times on all of the rubbish in there, so maybe that's the problem.
We all know there's certainly a lot of those four-letter words.
Yeah, well, it happens, just not here, not in public.
Thanks, Kim. But I want to thank Jody again and your team. Also Rod and Jim. And Jim, thanks for your report tonight, and to the team that is the underpinning of all of that success that we're starting to see, and really appreciate that. And then Chris Gray, I don't know if you're listening, but I know, Rod, you'll share with her our congratulations as she moves on to her next venture. and her thanks and gratitude from this board and the district for all that she's done for us. So with that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Jack?
Chuck?
Chuck?
Jack will support, though.
Okay, Jack, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Great
Hearing
meeting.
none?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Hearing none, those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.